Hey everyone, just got back from a recent camping trip. We were in June Lake, California at the O Ridge campgrounds in the Eastern Sierras. We left on a Friday. We got there on, I think it was April 30th, 2021. We stayed until May 2nd. And just to let you know, daytime temperatures were about in the 60s. Nighttime temperatures dropped into the 30s, sometimes below, sometimes a little hotter than 30, probably about 34, 35 degrees. But we had gusty winds throughout the day and gusty winds throughout the night. And when I talk about gusty winds, entire campsites were obliterated. People that didn't tie down their tents were just flying across the campground. Canopies that weren't secured were flying up in the air. The winds were really, really gusty. So today's video, or actually it's a slideshow, is about the structure that we used, and I think it's the best thing to use for camping. And it's not really a camping tent; it's actually an ice fishing hut, or an ice fishing shelter. And I truly believe this is the wave of the future for even summertime camping, as it's a structure that really proved itself. And if you're interested in using one of these might give you some ideas and tips on how to make it work. Before we get into the ice shelter, or the ice fishing shelter, maybe I have to kind of go back. We do a form of glamour camping, and we use a 10 by 20 summer tent. It's a cabin tent, three complete rooms. Um, in one room, we have sleeping quarters. The middle room, we usually have our living setup with inflatable couches and lounge chairs. And in the back section, the third section, would be our dressing area, and we also have a restroom, a cassette toilet for the evening. So we're kind of used to having a lot of space, but the one thing and the drawback of having a summer style tent, especially inside weather that where it gets cold and windy, that's exactly what happens. Set up for these things, even though it's a pop up tent, in a sense, it does take a long time to secure it and tie it down. You get a lot of wind that comes through it because basically it's all mesh on the top with just a rain fly, um, and so it's a great structure in the summertime, and it's a great structure to be in during the daytime, but in the evening it does become a challenge as far as keeping it warm inside. So we decided to try something different. We actually did some SUV camping, and we were sleeping inside an SUV, and then we realized that one of the drawbacks of one of the positives of SUV camping was that we could just fire up the engine and turn the heater on, and we had a very comfortable stay. But you do sacrifice space, and so we had no space whatsoever. Get kind of claustrophobic. I mean, it's a big difference between an SUV and a 10 by 20 tent. So we were looking into some other structure that we can use that's insulated and would keep us warm in the evening. So we kind of put our 10 by 20 three-room cabin tent to the side and started thinking of what our next shelter would be. So after just a little research and these things, um, we went out. We purchased one. We actually got this one on Amazon for probably about $150. Its total size is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 11 feet by 7. It is an ice fishing shelter, an ice fishing hut. These things are really, really cool. They open and close in like an origami folding style, and it literally takes, I would say, 30 seconds to open one of these things up or to take it down. Um, it's just as easy to take it down, but just very quick setup time. A lot quicker than anything out there. Even a cheap little tent that has the little fiberglass poles take a lot longer to put this thing together. Basically, the way that you do it is you really just pop down it to open it up. All you do is just pull the tops up and pull the sides out, and this thing's ready to go literally in 30 seconds. To take it down, all you do is pop it down as far as pop down the roofs, let it fall to the ground, pop in the sides, let it go to the ground, and then you just kind of origami fold it up, and it literally turns into something just a little larger than a beach chair. That's what it kind of looks like when it's all folded up. So it's kind of, in a sense, kind of compact too as well, folding up. But these things are really, really cool. You can see that they're super, super insulated on the outside. You do have to tie them down. It is recommended, but you can, if there is kind of any kind of wind, you're definitely going to want to tie it down. Other than that, I think it's an excellent shelter to use. Um, can't say, I mean, it was, like I said, we had gusty winds and things were flying around. We zipped that thing up. We were inside of it in the evening, and we didn't feel any wind come into the structure at all. Um, and we also have and we'll talk about it later, but we also have a buddy Mr. Heater that we used inside, and that also helped out a lot. But other than that, the structure itself very, very resistant to any kind of climate that you might have, and it's a huge plus. The only drawback to it is in the direct sunlight, it turns into a sauna, which was kind of challenging. And we didn't spend any time inside of it at all. But we have some ideas. There's 2 doors, and we're gonna basically it doesn't come with any screens for the doors or for the windows. The windows do open up, but it doesn't have screens. So one of the modifications we'll be doing will be adding screens, mesh to the outside windows, and then creating a screen door on both sides so we can have some airflow. Other than that, there's not too many other modifications that you would have to do to the tent or the shelter at all. Now, take in mind it is an ice fishing shelter, so it doesn't have a floor. And so what we did for the floor was we put the structure down on a 10 by 20 tarp, and it has these flaps that are at the base of the structure. And what you're supposed to do when you're on a frozen lake is you're supposed to fold them outwards. You're supposed to pack the sides with snow, which basically insulates it from the wind coming through the bottom. What we did is we actually took those flaps and we folded them inside, and so now they're inside. And we took duct tape, and all we did was we ran 3 beads of duct tape around the entire perimeter and onto the tarp, and that pretty much kept it sealed and insulated. Now, if I thought that there was going to be any kind of rain or some inclement weather, I probably would have went with, instead of 3 beads around, I would have went with 5, and that would have made it totally water resistant if there was any kind of rain. But you want to do that as far as at least 3 beads, because it does keep the wind out and it does keep the bugs out, and it becomes a very solid, stable, and also a very insulated structure. Now, as far as the inside or the interior of the structure itself, it's like I said, it's an 11 by 7. It is tall. I stand like 5'5", and I'm able to stand up okay. But I think it has a rating of like over 6 feet tall. So even taller people would have no problem fitting inside. Inside that picture, you actually see a pop-up pod, which we actually have a cassette toilet inside for privacy. And if you know the dimensions of that, I think that's over almost 6 feet tall itself. So it kind of gives you an idea of height, of how high the actual structure is. We had a queen size air mattress in there, and it fits pretty well. Um, we also had our luggage in there as well. It was on the opposite side, you don't see it. So like I said, it does have a lot of space in there. One of the things that we did add was a buddy Mr. Heater that we had inside the tent. And here's something else. So we were talking about the wind. The wind we didn't feel at all. But outside temperatures at night were in the 30s. And we were able able to turn on the Mr. Heater, turn it on for approximately 15 to 20 minutes at high. The tent, because it's insulated, would heat up fairly quickly and it would retain the heat. We were able to turn off the heater because it actually started getting kind of hot. We had an inside temperature of somewhere in the mid 60s to the low 70s, just with the heater on for about 20 minutes to a half an hour. What we would do is we would shut off the heater itself, even though we had a carbon monoxide sensor, and they tell us that it's safe to do so, but we turn it off because we just want to get it nice and warm so we can fall asleep. And when we fall asleep, we turn it off. And if we wake up in the evening, in the middle of the night to use the restroom or something, we'll probably just turn the heater back on for like 10-15 minutes, and it gets hot really, really quick, which makes it, like I said, it's just a really cool structure to have. One of the other things that we're probably going to add to it, and again, there's space in there, the pop-up pod does fit in there. We're going to, our next venture, the next idea is to actually create or build a shower unit, so we can also take a shower in there if we do any kind of dry camping. Currently, we do a lot of camping where we have access to showers, but there are going to be some future trips that we won't have access to showers, and so that's something that we're definitely going to want to have. And so we can create a shower unit. Second idea is to actually, they sell smaller ones of these, which are probably about 5x7 or so. And like I said, they literally pop up in a second. So we can have a second tent, a smaller one, to have that facility in there, and also store some extra supplies and extra luggage. So we'd have two structures. So that's just an idea. But I think we can fit the shower unit inside this one, and it's going to work out fine. So that's it. That's an ice fishing hut, a shelter that we're using for summer camping. We find that it's probably, like I said, the wave of the future. I think this is how everybody should be camping. Take down and putting it up. It's just super fast, and literally seconds to put this up and literally seconds to take it down. That in itself is a huge plus. A lot of space, you can stand inside of it. It's insulated, so as far as in any kind of inclement weather, I mean, this thing, you can be in a snowstorm, but regardless of temperature outside, or if it's windy outside, you do not even feel it inside. It's just the craziest experience to sit there and hear the wind outside but not feel anything. Highly recommended. There are some modifications that you will have to do if you do get one of these things. A floor, I think, is a necessity because you will get that air, the draft that would come through the bottom. Also, you have bugs that could possibly crawl in. So using duct tape and a tarp will fix that. Like I said before, the windows, they open and they have blinds, but there's no mesh to them, or there's no screen to them. So when you do open them up, you have the chance of insects coming in. So having basically just taking some mesh and then gluing it on the outside will take care of that problem. The door might be a little more challenging as far as creating a screen door and there's two entrances on either side. Other than that, plenty of space. Like I said, we got a cassette toilet in there with the pod canopy. Installing the shower would be the next one, and get that Buddy Mr. Heater. That thing, you don't use a lot of propane because, like I said, the structure itself is so insulated that you don't have to run the heater a lot to get it to temperature where it's comfortable enough to go to sleep. Like I said, outside temperatures was in the 30s, and we were able to get the inside easily into the 60s and 70s. So, again, just want to pass on this idea, and it wasn't my idea. I seen them on YouTube, and other people are using them. But being at the campsite, talking to the camp host, and then everybody that that saw it, this is the first time I think anybody has seen an ice fishing hut at the June Lake Old Ridge Campground. And it has just a very distinct, unique look to it. It looks very futuristic, and a lot of people had a lot of questions about it, um, and we're just curious to know what it was and what the experience was. So that's why I decided, hey, I think I should put a video out there to kind of throw out our experience of using an ice fishing shelter for camping. And I have to give it a two thumbs up. Like I said, the only drawback is you can't go in this thing during the daytime. It literally turns into a sauna. Um, Putting on the screens might help, maybe, not sure. But then we were also thinking of going the other direction of, because it is kind of like an airtight structure, we might be able to actually seal it up and install some sort of AC unit on the inside. So that's probably an idea that we might think of and see if it's actually doable. But for now, we're just going to try to put some mesh windows and put some screen doors on it and see if that helps out, and maybe a fan on the inside. So, so that's it. That's it. Hopefully, this slideshow has given other people some other ideas and thoughts as far as capabilities on using an ice fishing shelter for regular camping. Well, like I said, I think if you want to really have an enjoyable experience in the great outdoors with a shelter that is just, again, so easy to put up and so easy to take down. You can look at some other YouTube videos about that, and you'll see. I mean, it literally takes seconds to do it, and it folds up origami style into, like I said, something that's just a little larger than a beach chair. So it's really compact as well as far as taking this thing around. Um, so thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you'll get some pretty good ideas and on using one of these structures for camping. And I personally would like to see more of them out there.